According to the latest UBS Global Wealth Report, there are currently around 52 million millionaires in the world as of 2025, and nearly 80% of them are self-made, meaning they started off from scratch and they all passed the same 3 tests. These tests decide who breaks through and who gets stuck. And that's what we're talking about today. Here are the 3 tests you need to pass to become a millionaire. Welcome to ALUX. All right, so the first test that every millionaire must pass is the scale test. Now, most people think scale just means doing more products, more staff, more sales. But if you grow like that, your costs rise just as fast as your income, and you usually collapse under your own weight. This is where the saying, more money, more problems comes from, okay? In business terms, it's called growing broke. Your business is growing on paper, but your costs are rising at the same rate. So you're just working harder for the exact same profit. That's why so many businesses fail when they expand too quickly. They confuse getting bigger with scaling. True scale is about doing more with less. It means finding ways to grow your output without your costs growing at the same pace. And that is a whole lot harder than it sounds. That's why entire job titles like growth hackers exist. Their whole purpose is to figure out how to get 10 times the results without 10 times the spending. And they're paid a fortune because solving this test is incredibly hard. The principle is simple though. The bigger you get, the cheaper everything becomes. Economists call this economies of scale, and it's one of the most powerful forces in wealth creation. Let's just look at some numbers here. A small clothing brand might pay $7 to produce a shirt. At that level, they're just another boutique scraping by. But when you manufacture tens of thousands of shirts at once, your cost per unit falls to around $3. At hundreds of thousands, it drops again. At millions, factories retool production lines just for you, and suddenly you're paying closer to $1.50 a shirt. And the efficiency, it doesn't stop there. Instead of making t-shirts in 5 different sizes, fast fashion brands often stick to just 2 or 3 of the most common ones. And that decision alone saves them millions in fabric, patterns, logistics, and unsold stock. It's also why nothing fits you unless you're tall and skinny. A 2019 investigation into Zara's supply chain found that the factory production cost of a hoodie was just €2.08, while Zara retailed it for nearly €30 in Europe. That's a 15x markup, powered entirely by scale and efficiency. At volume, the economics flip so hard in your favor that smaller competitors they don't stand a chance. And that's why competing with Zara or Shein is basically impossible unless you own the factory. Their scale gives them cost structures that no small brand could ever replicate. Now, when you're already big, lowering costs is relatively easy. Big companies can buy scale by placing giant orders and forcing suppliers to cut costs. But when you're small, you don't have that advantage, right? And that is when creativity decides if you make it or not. Instead of hiring 10 people, you find a way to automate repetitive work so that one person does the job of 5. Instead of selling door-to-door, you run a single ad campaign that reaches thousands at once. Instead of offering endless variations, you strip your product down to one version that can be produced endlessly without waste. There really isn't a good answer for this test. It's a matter of building the right systems. Passing the scale test at a small size proves that you know how to grow output without letting costs eat you alive. But, that isn't something that people just inherently know how to do. It's a skill you must cultivate if you want your business to be successful, and that is why we hire expert business coaches to collaborate with us inside the ALUX app. We pay them their expensive fees, sit them down in a studio, and have them guide you through the lessons and principles that will help you scale your business successfully. The principles they use themselves. Hundreds of thousands of top-level managers, CEOs, and entrepreneurs are using the ALUX app simply because it works, okay? And if you download the app and scan this QR code on screen, you'll snag 25% off your annual membership. I'll see you on the inside, but in the meantime, let's get back to business. So, the second test that every millionaire must pass is the leverage test. At its core, leverage is just a math problem, really. It's about balancing 3 things: outcome, probability, and cash flow. So outcome is how big the upside or downside can be. Probability is the chance it actually happens, and cash flow is whether you can survive long enough if it doesn't pay off right away. And the better you are at running this math, the more leverage you can afford to take on and the faster you can grow. If scale is about efficiency and making things cheaper as you grow, leverage is about acceleration. It's what turns a small operation into a business that grows faster than you do. Now, there are 4 main types of leverage, and every millionaire has solved at least one of them. The first is financial leverage, which, it's the most obvious. You borrow money to expand operations. Imagine that you're a founder who takes out a $100,000 loan at 5% interest to launch a new product. The loan costs you $5,000 a year in interest plus repayment. If the product brings in $120,000 after cost, you've cleared $20,000 in profit even after paying that loan back. That's a win. But if sales flop and you only bring in $70,000, you still owe the bank $100,000 plus interest. Suddenly, you're in the red. So, can your business survive the downside scenario long enough to reach the upside? If yes, then financial leverage works in your favor. Secondly, we've got people leverage. When you hire employees or contractors to multiply your time. So let's say you hire a salesperson at $4,000 a month. If they consistently close $12,000 in sales, they pay for themselves 3 times over. That 3x number is not random, okay? It's a rule of thumb in business. For a hire to make sense, they need to generate at least 3 times their salary, and that is because at 1x, they only cover their own cost with nothing left for rent, tools, or marketing. At 2x, they cover their own salary plus the day-to-day cost, which means a little bit of profit. At 3x, you're finally in a sweet spot where salary and expenses are covered and there's profit left over. So the people leverage test is finding roles where $1 of payroll reliably turns into $3 of value. All right, moving on, the third main kind of leverage is technology. Now, the test here is how you handle the massive upfront cost, because any kind of tech needs a decent chunk of money to be developed, plus the maintenance costs to keep it running. We know this firsthand, okay? Building a great app is not exactly cheap. Let's say you spend $50,000 building a software tool. If you can attract 1,000 users paying $10 a month, that's $10,000 in monthly revenue. You break even in 5 months, and after that, it's almost pure profit. But, if only 50 people sign up, you're making $500 a month, and it'll take over 8 years just to break even. If it works, you win big. But if it fails, you are 100% done, my friend. And lastly, we've got media leverage. Now, the test here is finding a way to cut through the noise. This is where companies hire kids to make brand-related memes on Twitter and call it a day. Yeah, we're still calling it Twitter, okay? Let's be real. Every self-made millionaire has cracked at least one of these leverage tests. Most have mastered more than one. Passing the leverage test isn't optional because it marks the moment you stop running a job and start running a business. You've probably seen people working non-stop on their business, not because they want to, because they have to. They are employees at their own company because, they have no leverage. All right, now moving on, we gotta talk about the third test every millionaire faces, and it is the test of luck. Now, this is one that nobody likes to admit because people want to believe success is all about skill, hustle, and strategy. But look, okay, there's always an element of timing and positioning that you simply can't control. Luck here means being in the right place at the right time in a market that's about to grow. And you don't get to decide when that growth happens, but you do get to decide the arena you step into and when you make your move. Right now, AI is exploding, okay? The industry was worth around $200 billion in 2023, and by 2030, it's projected to reach nearly $1.8 trillion. That's an annual growth rate of almost 40%. Salaries for AI engineers are climbing, stock options are turning into fortunes, and companies like NVIDIA have tripled their value in less than 2 years. Like it or not, okay, your next fridge might applaud your choice of breakfast. That is how deep AI is embedding itself into everyday life. And if you're positioned inside that wave as an employee, an investor, a supplier, even just a freelancer who learns how to use these tools, The tide itself is pushing you forward. Now, back in the 1980s, AI had its first big hype cycle. Money poured into research, expectations soared. But back then, reality just didn't deliver fast enough. Governments pulled funding, corporations abandoned projects, and what is now called the AI winter froze the industry for years. But now it's the same field, the same skills, just a different decade, and the outcome was the complete opposite, right? Right place, wrong time. You see the same thing in other industries too, like solar energy in the 1980s, VR in 2016. That's the essence of the test of luck. The same effort, the same talent, even the same product can lead to a fortune or a failure depending on when the world is ready. So, how do you tilt the odds here? Well, the first way is by choosing industries where long-term demand is undeniable. We ranked these industries in the previous video, which you can check out in the description. Aging populations, for instance, is a big one, okay? Every country on Earth is getting older. That means more healthcare, more medicine, more caregivers needed. The same goes for the energy transition. Fossil fuels are being replaced by renewables whether we like it or not. And once a technology like AI proves itself, adoption only accelerates. People don't go back to pre-AI workflows. The second way is diversification. You don't have to get every call right, okay? Some fail, but one or two will ride the wave, and that is enough to cross the seven-figure line. And the third is timing your entry. Too late and you're fighting out incumbents who already dominate the market. Too early and you run out of resources before the market even matures. The sweet spot is when growth is accelerating, not pure hype, not total saturation, but the inflection point in between. This is why millionaires often look lucky. From the outside, it seems like they were just in the right place at the right time. And, in a way, they were. But what most people don't see is that they put themselves in situations where growth was likely. They took multiple shots, and they stayed ready when the timing lined up. Passing the test of luck means your effort compounds because the world itself is pushing you forward. Failing means you can work just as hard as somebody else, maybe even harder, but your results collapse because the timing wasn't right. Scale makes your product efficient. Leverage accelerates your business. And luck, which is timing and positioning, ensures the entire path you're on is actually growing on its own. Put all three together, and they multiply. That is why these three tests explain almost every self-made millionaire story. So, if these are the three tests every millionaire must pass, which one do you think you would struggle with the most? Let us know in the comments. We're curious to know. And you've seen the tests here today, but next up you'll be meeting the players because millionaires usually fall into just a few clear archetypes. From the builder to the operator to the investor, each one has a different path through these tests. And once you know them, you can figure out which one you are. We'll talk about them next Friday. Until then, my friend, take care and thanks for watching.